Hello and welcome to the next episode of Frog Manual number 10. And in this episode I'll be showing you how to convert a P226, P228, P229 and all similar models based on the TM design. So WE, KJW, TM, obviously everything that use the same system. There are two versions of this conversion because the KJW design is tiny bit different. But these are just dimensional differences, it's not something that you will notice easily. The method of the assembly is one-to-one the same for all of them. So for this video I'll be assembling only one version, but the process for the second version is perfectly the same. Let's have a look on the parts. We will have three stages this time. One will be conversion preparation with use of magazine parts, one will be conversion assembly to the gun, and one will be obviously testing. So what comes in the set with the conversion? As usual, there is a dedicated speed loader. This time I have here version 2.4. It will be published on Colts with some update too. I believe the last version published was probably 2.1 or maybe 2.3. There are 3 magazines, each is 15 rounds. These are P226 magazine size, so 15 rounds. P229 magazines are a tiny bit different, they are shorter on the bottom and therefore they have smaller capacity, but I published a video regarding the magazines already. You can download these models. And there is also a piece of thin paracord, a hose already assembled and prepared, and the conversion itself. And the conversion here on the rear, it has 2 screws. And as usual, to be able to convert any type of gun or pistol from green gas to HPA, we need this gun or pistol. So here we go. I will be doing a KJ Works KP01 full metal. Okay, I got excited. So let's look inside. What do we have here? It's obviously a P226 but from KJ Works, and I must say I really like it. It looks impressive, although yeah, it's grained, so I don't think it really looks like in the reality. Actually, I've shot a real P226 and it was tiny bit different. But anyway, I also had a P226 from KJW like 15 years ago or something when I was starting with airsoft, and it was shiny and it was good pistol, but it was not so nice. Maybe it's not a realistic texture, but I like this kind of graining. Yeah, it looks really nice. So seems like a nice handgun. Okay, but it's not about me doing any review of the gun, it's me about converting this gun. And we obviously start with removing the magazine. And you must make sure that the magazine has no gas inside. So you can push the valve here to release the gas. Mine is empty, but if there is a lot of gas, be careful. You might actually want to use some screwdriver or something to do it, because the gas will eject and it can burn your hand, yeah, if you hold it too close, or you can just shoot it out. Anyway, mine is empty. And before I disassemble the magazine, I want to explain something. So have a look how the seal on the top looks like. You can see that it sticks out of this top level of the magazine, and it will be an important factor later when we will be assembling the gun. For example, in WE there are like pretty bad seals and they are almost flush with the top of magazine. If you have a handgun with this kind of seal, I suggest you replace it for like this kind. If you buy any better like Garder seal or Lilac seal or whatever, it will always be this higher type. Yeah. So when assembling the conversion to the gun, I will explain why it's important. But yeah, if you have this flat seal or like short seal flat with the top of the magazine, then probably you will run into some trouble. No different to the rifles, we need to take out the valve. So for this reason I take my valve removal tool and I basically unscrew it. Okay, I can pull it out, and I need to make sure that there are 3 seals on the valve. So one is on this tip that opens, right? There is one here and one here at the end, so none is left inside. Yeah, my 3 seals are here with the valve. And the second thing I need to take out is that seal I explained, and I will be reusing this pin that is here, so I need to push it out. So I'll take the tool and punch it slightly. Okay, so here is my pin, and when it's out I can take this part out, and I need to hold the spring and the follower because it will shoot out. Yeah, so I take the cap off and I can take the seal out, and actually I can put the cap back in, but I'm not sure it will stay there under spring pressure. Yeah, and even it stays there under spring tension. Maybe in different types of mags from WE or whatever this would not happen, but these 3 parts we need, this we don't need. With these 3 parts taken out, we take our conversion, and now we need to assemble these parts into the conversion. I will start with the seal. It's pretty simple. You need to first remove this plastic part here from the top. It's just pushed in, so use some force, it will come out. Now if you look on the seal, on these corners there is a small step. Yeah, so there is the small step at the bottom all around, and you must cut off the corner to make it with a chamfer, because the conversion is milled, so in the corners that will fit for that gasket in this deep part there in the conversion, it has to be irradiated. Yeah, so right now the sharp corners like here will not fit. So it's fairly simple. You just take a sharp knife and you just need to make it, you know, cut off each of these corners 45 degrees chamfer. Okay, and after I've done it, you see right now it's not round, but this chamfer will be good enough to make the seal go smoothly into the conversion. So first I will put it into this plastic part. So the seal sits nicely, and you have to pay attention because it has to be elevated from the plastic. So you see, like just like on the magazine, the seal sticks out, so if it got caught somewhere inside you can help it get through. Yeah, and here on the bottom it should be on touch with the plastic. And now I can take the conversion and I can put this back in. Okay, so it's in and it sticks out of the conversion similarly to like it sticked out of the magazine. And now I can take the pin from the magazine and I can use it on this hole here. And basically you see these walls are pretty thin, so be careful not to break them when you press in the pin. If it goes too tight, you can try to increase the diameter of the hole, because it depends on the pin. There are many manufacturers and there is no one hole fitting all pins perfectly. So my pin went in. You can see it's here on the other side. It does not have to be totally flush because the pin will be above the magazine in the gun actually. This way it's a little easier. And now we can take the valve with all the seals. You can have a close look if there is no debris stick to them. And we need to throw it in here and screw it with the tool. And to screw it properly, we need to first undo, like we were removing the valve, until we hear the thread clicks. Now it matches, so we can screw it in. So you want to screw it in tightly. And again, there are many manufacturers of these magazines, valves, pistols and so on. So not every single part will be identical. What's important to pay attention to here is that the valve, when screwed fully in, does not stick out of this rear portion of the conversion. So if I try, yeah, I should be able to slide my caliper over the valve without it catching it on the move. Yeah, I have very slight catch, so I will try to tighten the valve tiny bit more, and now it's more or less fine. So the thing is that there is limited space for this depth direction for the valve in the conversion, because in front we have to have the magazine, right? So it can happen that the valve will be so much to the rear when assembled with the conversion that the hammer will not reset completely, so it will move back, but it will be still like pressing slightly on the valve. So in this case, if it will be happening to you, you just need to shorten this tip of the valve or the hammer here on this side so that it does not happen. So this stage is ready, conversion is prepared. Let's take the gun now. Here I have the gun, and first I'll explain what we will be doing and how, so that you will understand, because I guess quite obvious main concern is that if I mount the conversion into the gun, I will not be able to remove the slide because it will be colliding with the top of the conversion, which actually is true, and for this reason we will have to modify the gun tiny bit. And first I'll explain the logic behind it, and then I'll show how to do it. So I'll remove the slide, and in P226s theoretically you need to pull the slide back till this cutout is over here, but yeah, world of replicas. And right now I'm gonna take the magazine, the original one, and you see that when the magazine is seated, actually the top of the magazine is almost flush with the guiding surface here on top of the pistol frame. So we will be assembling the conversion basically in the same way, so that the top of the conversion has to be flat with this surface. But in this particular pistol, if you look on the bottom, you will see that there is a cam here on the rear that cocks the hammer, right? And this cam rides in this groove here in the middle, which you see is like lower than this surface, yeah? So this cam on the slide will be hitting our conversion each time we try to take the slide off. If we will be shooting, the cam will be moving backwards with the slide, so it's not a problem. But to remove the slide, we need to slide it forwards over that conversion part that will be permanently in the gun. So this is the tricky part, because you will have to modify the gun in such a way that these heights between the cam, the hammer and the conversion are proper, and then it will be possible to take off the slide over the conversion even without having to unscrew it. And obviously you don't want to unscrew it every time you need to take off the slide, because hop-up adjustment would be a nightmare if every time to get to this wheel here to set up the hop-up you need to take off the covers from the grip and disassemble the gun partially. Yeah, it would be crazy. So one thing that you will notice when you have a gun in your hands is that slide has some clearance. So actually even if the cam will collide with the conversion, it will be possible to pull it a little higher and move it over the conversion. Obviously it requires certain clearance, because some collision will happen, and you know, it cannot be like a hard collision. And second thing I want you to notice is that when you cock the hammer by pulling the slide back slowly, you will see that the hammer reaches some position. It already clicked, yeah, so it's already resetted. If I would release the slide now, the hammer would stay, but if I push more, the hammer goes a little lower, yeah. So there is some additional material on the cam. We'll remove those two screws. So we will do it in few stages. First, we will mount the conversion to the gun. The top of the conversion should be flush with this guide. If it will be higher, then it will be impossible to put on the slide in any way, yeah. In practice we can put it tiny bit lower, and we will need to basically see what works the best for us, yeah. So we will assemble it first flush, and when the conversion will be there attached, we will take the slide and we will try to assemble it to see if we have a collision of this cam with the conversion. So we will remove from the cam as much material as needed for the whole slide with this cam slide over the conversion when assembling it, and then we will see if the hammer is properly cocked. If the hammer will not be properly cocked, then we will have to take it out and move the teeth on which it catches in this cocked position tiny bit, like file it tiny bit, yeah, so that it catches earlier. And believe me, it's not that difficult as it sounds, yeah, but depending on the exact gun that you have, the manufacturer and the tolerances, it might end up that you need to do different activities. So in the best case, you will just screw this in, then you will put the slide over, and I never saw a gun which would not require a modification of this cam, but sometimes it's like taking 0.2 millimeters of height and you are good to go. So here you can place some bets on the KJW, which version of the assembly will it be. The first step will be taking off these plastic side grips, so we need to remove these screws, the same on the other side. And when both sides are removed, then we can just open those halves. They are held by some pins, so you need to use some force to, let's say, separate this. And it's better always to remove this one first, because this decocker here likes to pop out. So when we remove it, you can use the decocker and take it out with this plate. And with the spring, in some of the guns, this plate is actually integrated into the frame. Okay, and now we want to remove the rear part. So we need to push this weight, and in WE it's done a bit differently. This is a permanent part of the frame, and there is a pin inside that we need to push out to take out the spring here. But yeah, in this gun, I take this out, I take this whatever that part name is, and the spring. So what you will need to do is basically drill holes in the rear of the frame here. It's completely metal, yeah, so nice flat surface, and basically screw through these holes the conversion in proper position. And because here in the rear there was this anonymous part with the spring, so that the spring will not catch against it, you need to make a hole with chamfer so that the head of the screw hides, yeah, so the perfect state would be having this completely flush. So how to find out where the holes shall be, and this is the next tricky part. So basically you need to measure it, but as this magwell is fully covered, it's hard to access it to be able to do it, yeah. On some guns there are bigger openings here, so maybe it's a bit simpler. We will have to insert the conversion to the proper position, and then with caliper inside measure how far away from this edge on your pistol, whatever pistol this is, if this is 226, 229, whatever, how far this edge is, and the middle of the hole should be 3 millimeters above that distance, yeah. And remember that this is at an angle, so you have to measure it properly, yeah. So I'll show it. So I take my caliper and I take my conversion, I put the conversion inside, and I keep it with my hand flush on the top. It's really not a big difference, it will be perfectly flush or 0.1 millimeters, it will not change anything, yeah. And now I extend my caliper until I reach the bottom of the conversion, yeah. And important is that I measure from this edge that I can measure then later on the other side, yeah. So in my case this is 65.95, so let's say 66 millimeters, and actually it could be easier to measure it, you know, look inside and measure it this way. But so here I have my 66 millimeters, and I add 3 millimeters because I was measuring this surface and the hole is 3 millimeters above this surface, yeah. So I need to set my caliper to a bit longer dimension. So I go for 69, 66 plus 3. I lock the caliper with this screw here on the rear, and I take it from the same point I was measuring from, but on this side, and I make a scratch on that height. So here is my 69 millimeters line. So this is the height for the screws. And for the width between the screws, it has to be mounted symmetrically. That's first thing. So I can measure the grip width, it's 25.2, let's say. I divide it by half, so it will be 12.6. I again lock it. I make a second scratch. and the distance in between these holes is 4.5 millimeters. So I can either set the caliper to 225 and make an offset of this middle line, or actually it will be tiny bit simpler. Maybe I can measure from this side. So it was 12.6 minus 225. I should set it to 1035. And I do the scratches on both sides. And just to be sure, I can measure if there is 4.5 between them. In my case, I don't know how well visible it is because of the parallax, but it is 4.6 around, yeah, so it's good enough. These are M2.5 screws, so now I will take a 2.5 diameter drill and I will drill these two holes through, and when drilling I will keep the pistol grip this way so that the debris will not go up and end up in the trigger mechanism. If you'd like, you can also take a tissue and put in to prevent it, you know, from getting dirty, but you don't want the tissue to be on the level where the holes will be, because it can get tangled in the drill. Yeah, so I'm gonna drill these two holes and be right back. And the way how I like to drill the holes is always to start with a tiny bit smaller drill. Start the hole, drill it through if possible, and then re-drill it to the proper size, because this way if it slips or it's not perfectly in center, I still can improve it for the second go. So right now, so in this case I already have my 1mm holes in proper place and I'm enlarging them to 2.5. When you have your holes, you can push out this tissue better downwards to push out any debris. Obviously clean it up inside so that nothing is flying around. It's fairly clean, and now we can try the conversion. So we need to put it in and basically catch it with these two screws from the inside and put it in place. You see my screws are in place and the conversion is attached. Actually it's tiny bit higher than it should be, and this is something I want to also talk about, because it's always better to put it higher than lower. If it's too high, then you can increase the size of these holes tiny bit downwards so that the conversion goes down, and it's supported by metal, it won't move, so it's not a problem. Generally when you are shooting it will not rotate because it has the step here that prevents from the rotation, right? In my case, I don't know, it's like maybe 0.2 millimeter. Probably I will extend it, but really tiny bit. And then the next thing you want to try is to insert the magazine and basically see if the arm here works, if the magazine is inserted with, you know, not big resistance. When everything is new, this magazine, of course, you know, there will be some friction between the magazine and the pistol, because it has to break in, but it should not be like you are hitting with a hammer, yeah, because you want to put it in. It should more or less smoothly go in, and if not, then it might mean that the conversion is rotated somehow in this axis and there is not enough clearance on one of the sides of the conversion and the magazine cannot fit basically. But in my case it's pretty good, and I still did not make these heads of the screws hidden in the metal. So what I will do now is I will extend the holes tiny bit down and add with some debarring tool or just a bigger drill. I will increase the size of these holes in a conical shape big enough so that the head of the screw can be hidden more or less flush with this rear surface. Yeah, and for this obviously I will need to remove the conversion. Now you can see these two screws are flush, yeah, so there is this big silver circle around both of them, which is the chamfer in which the heads of the screws lie, so they will not obstruct anything. And previously my finger said it's like 0.2 millimeters above that top surface, and right now my finger says it's like 0.1 millimeter below this top surface. Yeah, so it's good enough, let's say. And of course the magazine goes in nicely and can be removed easily. Yeah. So in some of the guns actually this might be it. When you take the frame and you try to pull it over, it might go all the way. If you pull it up, it might actually slide over the conversion. In this one, this doesn't happen. There is a collision here, and what I could do is I could actually press on the conversion downwards here because the attachment point is here, so it will always have some free play in this direction, but I don't want to force it. Yeah, so you see when I press the conversion I was able to put the frame over a tiny bit more, but it's still not enough, and if I will continue to force it like this I can break something, so definitely I don't want to do it. For this reason I will be working with this cam here on the rear, but still before I do it I'll do one more test, and for this test we need to remove the spring guide with the spring, barrel with the chamber and everything in front, and we can stay with this part. Yeah, so we will have this BB unit here. And what I will do is I will loosen the screws just a bit so that the conversion starts moving, and right now I will be able to put the frame over easily. Yeah, and when it's in the proper position I will tighten the conversion back. Yeah, and if I have the screws tightened and I set up the slide in this neutral position, let's say, when I pull it, the nozzle should stay in place. Yeah, and I removed the chamber because sometimes it happens that actually it's not that seal that seals against the nozzle and holds it in place is the reason for the nozzle to stay. Sometimes it's the hop-up backing. Yeah, so I want to make sure that if I have my conversion it's actually tight, and this is how I check it. Yeah, so this is a proper behavior. There is some resistance to push the BB unit over the seal with the gasket, and the nozzle stays in place where I pull it back, which means that I have good seal compression. So when I checked it I can now again loosen the conversion so that I can pull off the slide from the frame. So now we will be working with this cam, and in order to be able to work with it we need the conversion in the final position. So tighten it again. And now with the conversion not moving in final position I can start here. So let's make some space. I will tape regular masking tape like this one, and I will tape it here over the BB unit, and I need to do it pretty tightly. If this is really greasy it might be actually hard to tape it. Yeah, so and basically we'll be filing this off. Yeah, and the height of the cam could be different in different guns, so it's really hard to say how much you need to remove. Basically by trial and error. Remove to 0.2 millimeters, try it. Remove to 0.2 millimeters, if it still does not fit, try it again. And again and again and again until it finally starts to slide. And I will show you what it means that it slides, because you don't want this to be completely loose when it goes over the conversion. There will always be some tension. It will not be super clean sliding the slide from the frame, it will be with some resistance. Yeah, so I'll show you. And then we want to also polish it, because this works with the hammer, so we don't want a scratchy surface here, not to use it up. Yeah, so let's say I did the first cycle. You see the surface is nice and shiny. I actually made it 0.35 millimeters lower than it was previously, and now I want to try it. So I need to obviously remove the tape, I need to clean this all up. If you are getting a lot of these filed pieces of metal inside there, maybe you want to actually remove the whole nozzle from the pistol. I can do it quite cleanly, so I don't really feel like removing this right now. Yeah, definitely for a cleanup at the end I will. So I take the frame and I try to pull it over the conversion, and I meet resistance. It's stiff resistance. Even if I press the conversion, you see I can barely push it in, so it's not enough. So basically I take the slide again, I put a fresh tape over the same way I did, and I file it some more. I am using a regular hand flat file like this one. So I did some more, and I forgot to mention one thing. Every time when you do it, make sure that here on the rear you also add some kind of chamfer or a radii with the file, because otherwise you can have a quite sharp edge here, and when sliding over the seal you can catch it and damage it. Yeah, so let's see. If I take the slide right now, it still blocks, and if I look here, you will not be able to see it, but I see it catches on the seal. So I will push the seal down with the screwdriver, and obviously the target is not to do it, yeah, this is just some test activity. So I'll compress the seal not to damage it. I was able to pull the slide over the conversion, and now you see the rear guide on the slide engages this rear guide on the frame. So let's try to press it together, and actually it jumped. So you see it actually is almost okay. Now when I pull the trigger, I don't have the return spring, so I will have to move the hammer manually, yeah. And I want to make sure that when I cock the slide, the hammer will be blocked in final position, and it is. But this is not yet good enough, because you saw I used the screwdriver to help myself, right? It has to be a little easier to assemble it. So now let's try to pull it off, and it will be very easy. Yeah. So this is always easier because the conversion can move this way, yeah, and the chamfer here is quite long, so it's easy to take it out. And we want to file it tiny bit more, apparently, and when we will be filing this, the last step should be polishing it, yeah, so don't overdo it. So right now I removed 0.6 millimeters of metal from here, yeah, in height, and I'll remove maybe 0.1, 0.2 more, and then I will polish this whole surface, and I will make a nice guiding on this side, yeah, this is very important. And then I will do one more thing. So you see that the seal here on the front actually sticks out, and it's tilted this way as the conversion is, so it's easy for this side of this cam to catch against the seal and pull it like it did a moment ago when I tried to assemble it. So I would advise you to just make a chamfer here. So right now we have this seal, and right now there is a chamfer. Yeah, if I look from the side, I don't have this tip anymore. And how I did it is basically I took a very sharp fresh blade and I just, you know, cut off a piece here. And don't worry, there is enough space in front to seal against the nozzle, it will not cause any issues. You can see I have right now a nice shiny surface here, mirror polished. I did it with this kind of water sandpaper 1500 grit. It took literally like 1 minute maybe to polish it to this status, and previously I also filed a tiny bit more, yeah. So I have this front edge of the seal cut off, as you remember. I added this, and right now I can just try it again. I already did a cleanup, there is nothing inside here, so yeah, in my case let's say this is safe. And I observed the seal, actually it slided perfectly over the seal, it was not caught here. I push it again, this rear guide under this guide, yeah, so I push it, yeah, and it's assembled, and everything's perfect. You can see that the nozzle also stays in place, yeah, so basically it's done. Right now I will try the hammer, so again I need to release it manually. And when I'm pulling the slide back, I basically want the hammer to be cocked, yeah, so it is cocked. And if I pull the trigger again, I can release the hammer and the gun would shoot normally in an assembled condition. This means that actually at this moment I could put the gun back together and it would be it would work. However, I'm gonna disassemble the gun a bit more to show you what you need to do in case the hammer is not cocked. Obviously the manual will be missing something if I did not show it. And there's one more thing I want to show you. This is my personal P226 TM in a girder frame. Sometimes you can have this firing pin dummy here on the rear, and it also increases the height of this cam here. You can see my cam is also nice and polished, right? So if you have this kind of thing mounted in the rear, make sure that this cam of the dummy firing pin is not higher than this cam, because otherwise obviously it won't work. I think WE has something like this in stock, and apparently KJW doesn't. Okay, so let's say your hammer is not cocked by the movement of the slide. So what to do next? You need to take out the hammer from the pistol and file off that locking tooth which holds this position. It would be maybe visible in here, but it's pretty dark. Anyway, I'll explain you when I disassemble it which one is it and how to file it. So we need to remove some more parts, and the first to go is the spring. When the spring is out, we need to remove this big fat pin from here. You see it's falling out pretty often. And there is a second thin one here, and we also need to remove it. Okay, so the thin one is out. And right now I will be able to take out this rear part of the frame, as you just saw. Don't lose the spring and this arm, they were here on this side. Yeah. So let's put this aside. And right now there are two screws here and here that I would like to remove. So let's do it. Nice, some Loctite was used here. Okay, so one screw is out, and now the second screw is out. So basically this is how it is assembled together. You see there is this spring here. So make sure you remember the orientation. I always, when I assemble back the P226s, I'm like, how it was? I don't remember where is the proper place for this one. And this silver part here is the part that locks the hammer in place in the rear position. Yeah. So if I move it back, I can rotate the hammer. So you need to have a look where it locks against the silver part, basically. If I take out the hammer, you see it has two positions, this one and this one. So this is the cocked hammer, right? It catches on the silver part. And this is pre-cocked hammer when you use the decocker, right? And this is the final position when it strikes the firing pin here. I can press it. This is the firing pin. Okay, so basically, in case my hammer would not lock in this position, it is because it does not rotate so much that this teeth, this one, can catch against this silver part. So either I need to shorten the silver part tiny bit so that it engages earlier, or what I prefer to do, I had to do it in 1TM pistol, I just filed this tooth a little off, and basically I tried if right now it locks. If not, then I disassembled it again and tried again, and this method of trial and error gave me a good result in, like, you know, 1 or 2 loops. So remember, this one is the one you are interested in, and obviously you file it from the bottom here, yeah, so not from the top. So I would basically take a file and, you know, file it like this. So just for demonstration purposes, I removed this paint or this oxide layer, whatever that is. You see it's silver now. This is the surface you want to file in case the hammer does not cock properly. And to assemble it back, basically you need to put the hammer on, and the silver part will be in collision, so move it forwards. Yeah, right now it's nice. Then take the second half of this housing, put it over here. And when you have these two halves together, then short screw goes on the rear side and the long screw goes on the front side. And when you have the screws in place, you rotate this part, and you need to put this spring here on top, like this. And then take this part, rotate it to this orientation. You can see there is resistance wall for the spring here on top. So you basically need to compress the spring with it carefully. So make sure the spring pushes the silver part back, but anyway, you need to hold it with your hand because it will jump out. Actually, you don't need to remove the conversion to do it, but you will get more space if you loosen these screws and the conversion could wiggle a bit, yeah? But yeah, I'll try to do it with the conversion. Yeah, so basically you need to wiggle this in a bit, so pull the trigger a bit with this bar, you know, push this in a bit and so on until the part settles nicely in the position. And then take the small pin, put this back in here. This one goes in with tiny bit of resistance, now it will not fall out. Then we put this big fat one here, and we can take this spring that was here, and the spring goes like this. So here into this gap, and the top of it has to be under this arm so that it can lift it. So I will. Okay, So now we will assemble this part. The spring goes on with this smaller diameter side on this rod like this, and then this rod has to go into this slot here underneath. And if you have the hammer in this position, it will be easier to find the proper position. There is a rod in the hammer on the rear, and this part should support this rod. So basically when you push this arm upwards, the hammer will be moving upwards too. Yeah? And you can test it by pushing the trigger. Yeah? So basically you see it works. And right now I take the silver part, put the spring into this gap here. Yeah. Like this. So now, not to lose this spring, I can put this half of the grip first, rotate it like this, take the cocking lever with the piece of metal and the spring, put it back in place, and basically close the pistol grip. So let's quickly try if everything works. Trigger works, the cocker works, seems to be fine. You can put the screws back right now, but the tension on these pins on the rear should be enough for now. We can leave it for the next step. So right now I will assemble the slide back. Obviously I did the cleanup here, I did the relubing. I drop in the barrel with the hop-up chamber. Then I take the guiding rod with the return spring. I put it into the position, and the same method as previously, I pull the slide over. Here in this position I compress it a bit and I lock it. Yeah, and I'm good to go. So let's make some function check. Hammer works, cocks, drops. If I look here, you see that the nozzle stays, but this is caused partially by the sealing on the conversion and partially by the hop-up backing in the chamber, as I said, so it's not really proving anything. Because I have no issues right now, I can take the screws and I can screw the pistol grip back. So 2 screws, the next 2, and I have my complete pistol. So before I finish the assembly with the hose, I will just take one of the magazines, I will put it in, and now when I charge the pistol it should lock the slide obviously, and I can obviously release it then. So in this case I can remove the magazine, I can put it aside, and it's time to use the last 2 components. So we have this pre-cut, prepared hose. I just need to push it all into the conversion all the way. If you cannot do it on an assembled pistol, if you have trouble to, you know, do it for any reason, you can basically do it on an unassembled conversion. It's not a problem, yeah? But I'll do it right now, and yeah, remember, all the way in, the hose is pretty stiff, it should not make any problems. So I just put it into this blue circle visible there on the pneumatic connector on the bottom of conversion. So my hose is in, and right now I can do this test that I did also on the rifles. So I'm gonna blow through the hose. First let's reload the pistol, so the hammer is cocked and the valve should be resetted. And when I'm blowing through the hose right now, you don't see any sound because I'm not able to blow through it. And if I pull the trigger in this position right now, the valve is depressed, so I should be able to easily blow through it. You should hear some hissing, obviously, and when I reload it, right now this should be resetted and I should not be able to blow through it again, which I am not able to. So it's almost ready. The last part is taking this piece of paracord and tightening the hose to this lanyard attachment here on the rear of the pistol. So basically I'm gonna take it, I will push it under it, and I'm gonna help myself with some needle. Actually, when you do it on 2 halves disassembled, it's easier because you can just push it through, right? But why should I do something in a simple way, right? So it goes under this part here like this, and then it makes a loop around the hose here and goes back. Okay, so I have these two ends of the rope, and there is a loop holding the hose back, so I'm gonna do another loop, yeah, and I'm gonna tighten these two ropes together. So retracing this paracord, it goes around here, then it goes under this attachment for the lanyard, then it goes back here like the second loop on the other side, then it goes inside there below this attachment for the lanyard again, and this is the second end, and I want to tighten them both like this and pull them tightly, and this basically will keep the hose out of the way of the magazine so that you can reload it and the hose stays always in the same place. And so I did here just a simple knot, and I'm gonna put a bit of the glue, Loctite type, on that so that it won't be loosened ever. And these excesses I can cut off. And I don't have the excesses, you see the sticks out a little, so actually you can rotate and push this knot here inside so that it goes, let's say, behind the hose instead sticking out to the side. So right now, if you'd like to disassemble the pistol, you will take off this half of the grip, and basically these two halves of the lanyard attachment will separate, and you will be able to pull off this piece of paracord, and it will be just a simple loop. So when you will be reassembling this, it will be just one circular loop. You will put the loop over the half of this lanyard attachment, then take it around the hose and put the second end also into the same lanyard attachment, and then close it with the second half of the grip. It will be really simple. So now I can try the magazine for the last time. You see that the hose is attached here. It's stiff and secure with the spring on the rear here, and basically completely does not affect inserting the magazine. You can do it easily. So let's try again. Yeah, gun locks, unlocks, everything works. So now what is left is just to do some shooting and see how it works in practice. Let's do it! So I have my pistol, and remember, after the assembly you need to do the cleanup, remove all the metal debris or whatever, and lube the gun properly, yeah? So my gun is already prepared, everything works smooth. Obviously we need some pressure source, and the hose is connected. And I'm using a Redline Mini SFR in this case. Actually, pistol does not require big flow, so it will work on any kind of regulator. And the maximum pressure I can connect is 145 psi. So it's exactly the same as for all the rifle conversions. So there is no problem. If I want to run a rifle and a pistol, I can connect them to the same tank. Of course through the regulator, and both will not be damaged by the pressure. Yeah, so remember 145 psi. And before I connect the pressure, I must make sure that the gun is cocked. So I pull the slide back, it is cocked now. If it would not be, then if I connect the pressure, the gun would shoot automatically. So, you know, if there is a BB in the chamber, you could shoot unintentionally. And the second thing is that it can also be decocked in the case of P226, but with some of these guns, as there are many manufacturers and different quality and so on, make sure that if you blow through the hose on the decocked position, actually the valve is closed, because in some cases it's not closed in the decocked position. I remember it was even written in some manuals for some guns a few years back that it can shoot when you decock it. Yeah, so make sure. Yeah. mine is decocked and the air does not go through if I try to blow into the QD connector, so this decocked position is okay too. But anyway, I will reload it without BBs, of course, no magazine, and I'll connect the pressure the regular way. And I'm running this kind of regular hose. Probably you would run some kind of spring type lanyard for a pistol, right? So first thing is to test if the pressure holds, so no hissing. We can listen to the pistol if nothing's going on, especially in the magwell. Yeah, everything's fine. If I pull back the slide, if nothing is going on here, I don't hear anything. Everything seems fine. Then for P226, let's try to decock it, do the same. So listen. All seems okay. You can do it multiple times, of course, yeah. And then let's put the magazine in and again listen if it does not hiss, if there is not running out. And what magazine could change, it can push back the conversion a bit, and if your valve was too long, like I explained in the assembly part, then the conversion could be squeezed into the hammer and actually some air could be leaking. Yeah, so in the rifle it's rather not possible because of the clearances, but here it is. So again, I'm listening, nothing's going on. You see that the slide locks because I have the magazine in, obviously. So now let's remove the magazine and let's first do some dry shots. And again, listen if everything's fine. Yeah, so everything's fine. Let's do some more. And now let's take the magazine. You can test every single one of them, obviously, but I insert the magazine and I don't hold the slide locking lever, yeah, and I'm shooting, and let's see if the slide will lock every time. So let's do like, I don't know, 5-10 tries. Yeah, and so on and so on. So you can test everything. And basically, if that's okay, then the gun works. Most of these guns will be like 0.6, 0.7 joules on 0.25 BBs because of the HPA conversion, giving, as in the rifles, less energy than green gas would. But you can change the barrel or the backing to some better one, tighter barrel I mean, or better quality backing, and the energy could go up. I don't really see a reason in a handgun to do so. That's all. So the gun is working. Remember to use dedicated speed loader for these magazines, not to damage the feeding lips. They are pretty tiny and the gun, let's say, will not break them. But if you load them from the top, definitely you will use this up very, very quickly. So always use the speed loader. So maybe last thing I would talk about are the most common issues that you could face at this assembly. Yeah, so I think I addressed everything that was valid for the assembly itself. But what if you did the assembly and the gun is not working properly? Yeah, the first thing that could happen is that the gun does not kick, let's say, the right way. So if you shot the gun before mounting the conversion, you know more or less how it should work. It should, let's say, kick, have enough energy to move the slide all the way back and be locked by the slide locking lever here. And if this does not happen, then most likely you have a leak. And the leak could be in two places actually. One, the obvious place is on the seal here. So if your seal is too low, the air would not be going only to the nozzle, but also running to the sides, and it's hard to diagnose it because this is like a closed thing. It's hard to see what's going on inside, but this is the number one cause. So you need to really investigate it by pulling the slide back, looking in there if there is good touch for sure, and if the opening on the seal aligns with the opening in the nozzle when the slide is forward. Because on some different types it's not always perfect. Maybe you need to do some correction, maybe tilt the conversion a bit, maybe make it a bit higher. Yeah, I explained it's always good to replace these low quality flat seals because they are very often have this kind of leakage. And the second thing is that in the BB unit sometimes the seal on the rear part is this type that has to be blown open in order to seal. So it can also happen that when you will be getting these losses of the pressure, they are coming from the seal on the rear, and then you just need to replace it best with this regular piston type with an O-ring. Basically, when you put this into the nozzle and you blow into the nozzle, of course you need to seal with your finger the bottom opening for the gas, yeah, from the bottom. Then if you are able to blow through it, then most likely pressure will not be that high and rising so quickly to open that seal. So this should be, let's say, sealed status in all conditions. These are the most common issues, but if there is something else happening, you can also always check it with your local frog engineer, and definitely there will be solution. Because of the amount of the copies of this TM system and the manufacturers, replacement parts and so on, there is always something that could be tiny bit different between them. So this is the complete video. I showed you how to assemble the P226 conversion for Tokyo Marui system handguns. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next videos. There will be more pistols coming, and in general more systems. The next one will be kind of a very popular pistol. Remember to subscribe, comment, let me know your thoughts about the system and my videos in general. I appreciate your support. Don't miss on the next videos. May the power of GBB Pistol be with you.